The brothers.
Welcome back to the VG Bros.
Welcome
We're doing kind of a podcast style thing here going on.
Kind of Q&A, yeah.
We've got a bunch of questions from viewers, both on our Instagram account and on YouTube over the last few months. And we just kind of wanted to respond to those questions in a video format, and we thought it'd be fun to do. So yeah, before we get started, I don't know, let's talk about some games that we've been playing.
Let's talk about it.
What have you been playing?
I've been playing Link's Awakening for the Switch, the remake that came out a little while ago.
Yep.
I'm probably, I don't know, a quarter of the way through, but I haven't played this game in a long time. I played it when I was a kid, went all the way through it, loved it, but it's not one of these Zeldas that I've revisited 100 times over the years. I really haven't. So this is the first time I've played it in probably 20 years. It's been a long time. And I gotta say, it's held up, I mean, really well. It is fantastic. I love everything about it. The dungeons are great, the puzzles are great, the music is great, everything about it.
It's wonderful. I picked it up. I've already finished it. It's short. It is a pretty
it
short.
was a Game Boy game.
It was a Game Boy game.
Yeah.
I finished it a few days ago. The art style, when I first saw the trailer, I think it was maybe last E3, I was a little kind of like, whoa, I don't know about this. But just like Wind Waker, you always have that first impression like, ooh, but then you start playing and you're like, oh, this looks so pretty. It does. I love it.
Anyway.
Yeah, Link's Awakening is a great game, and I'm really glad that there's a whole new generation that can now experience that game. Mm-hmm. You and me have pretty extensive backlogs of Nintendo collections and video games, and we can go back to those games, but let's face it, most younger generations are not gonna just go find a way to play Link's Awakening. Maybe it's on the 3DS Virtual Console. I have no idea.
I think it is.
But most people aren't going to seek out that game, but now they are. So now there's a lot of kids out there that can experience this game, which is wonderful because it's a really fun game.
Yeah.
So I am still playing Fire Emblem Three Houses. I finished one house and I'm about to finish another house. So I don't know. Most people don't care about Fire Emblem. I'm a big fan of that series. That's what I've been doing. Luigis Mansion 3 comes out in a couple weeks. Do you have any interest in that game?
No, I really don't.
Yeah.
I've never been a big Luigi's Mansion fan. I played the very first one on the GameCube back in the day, and I don't know. It was kind of short, and it was okay. I didn't hate the game at all. It was a little delightful experience of going through and trying to find Mario, I think, and I don't know. It was,
It's charming. It's fun,
charming. It's just there's not much there, and I was at the point where I was really looking for a kind of a deeper experience and a longer experience, and it just didn't. There just wasn't a lot of content there, and honestly, I haven't played any of Luigi's Mansion since.
I haven't either.
And I don't know.
I have a feeling that Luigi's Mansion 3 is going to be a much longer game, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. I might
pick it up.
I might get pulled into it.
Who knows?
Yeah.
The nice thing about a Nintendo game is you can go buy it, play it for a while. If you don't like it, you can sell it, and you can make almost all your money back. Other games plummet in value like a new car when you drive it off the lot.
Yeah.
But a Nintendo game kind of holds its value like a Japanese car or maybe a Mercedes. Like, it's worth less than it was, but not a ton less.
Yeah, that's true.
One question that we've had multiple times is, what's our opinion on the classic mini consoles, and which one do we want to see next? And we have some opinions on that. We're actually doing a whole video reviewing the classic consoles, so we don't want to get too much into that in this video, but what we do want to address is, I don't know, what are you looking forward to next in the classic mini console family?
I think the TurboGrafx 16 is going to be a really big hit. It's a system that hasn't had a ton of re-releases and compilation discs, and they haven't had a bunch of cheap knockoff at games making classic turbo machines. There's only been a few ways to play those old games outside of emulation. The Wii Virtual Console had a bunch of them on there, but you can't download. Virtual Console's gone on the Wii. It's not coming back. So you can't even get those games anymore. I mean, you could track down a Wii that somebody else downloaded a bunch of those games on there, I guess, but there's a lot of games kind of stuck on the TurboGrafx, and those games are very expensive. Very expensive.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to the TurboGrafx 16 Mini. I think it comes out next April or something like that. But I think a lot of people are really looking forward to that because you're right. Those games haven't been released and re-released in a whole bunch of different formats over the last 2 decades, which Sega has done a bunch of times. But that's one we know is coming out.
Yeah.
So what don't we know? People keep talking about the N64 classic mini console. And I know
it's not going to happen.
It's not
folks.
happening.
It's not going to happen.
I truly believe that Nintendo is done with the classic mini consoles, and I don't like that. I wish they would keep making them, but I don't see it happening.
It's not going to happen. When Nintendo finally starts putting out N64 games on the Switch, like they have NES and Super NES, I think they're going to continue to do that because they have this subscription service now, and it's very cheap. I mean, what is it? $20 a year.
It's just nothing. Yeah.
I mean, it's very affordable. And I'm sure it'll go up. Netflix used to be like $6 a month, right? So everything goes up. But this is where the industry is headed: is the subscription-based stuff. I mean, that's where so many businesses. That's where they make their money. That's how they please their investors, and video games are no exception.
I had a friend that worked at Nintendo of America for a while, and I remember when the NES Classic first launched, I talked to him about them. I'm like, hey, where are these things? Why aren't they everywhere? And he said they were released at a very specific time near the end of the Wii U's lifespan where Nintendo did not have enough product to fill store shelves. And if you're the Walmarts or the Best Buys or the Targets of the world, they have specific agreements with Nintendo where Nintendo has to have X amount of product on their store shelves.
Specifically hardware, right?
Hardware, right.
Yeah.
And so Nintendo was sort of between systems and kind of going, well, we can only give them so many 3DSs, which they had been around forever. So they came up with this idea, and it was only ever supposed to be a placeholder. It was only going to be a temporary fix, so these stores would sort of lay off their back while they were finishing up work on the Switch system that they eventually came out with. And then the Super Nintendo Classic, of course, they came out with. And I think for a while, Nintendo was kind of like, yeah, people really like these classic consoles. Let's ramp up production a little bit, which they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I finally got both.
Yeah. Then it came to a halt. It just flat out ended. And it's been, I don't know, over a year since I've seen them in a store. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo was sort of weighing, well, do we do this as a subscription on the Switch, or do we keep releasing these classic consoles? And they're going down the subscription route. Look, every company in the world is doing this right now.
Yeah.
What people don't fully realize is that if you're a publicly traded company, you have shareholders that you have to please. And you have to do what those shareholders are demanding. Everyone is screaming at Ubisoft and EA and Activision and Blizzard for like all of these microtransactions and all their new games and everything like that. Look, you can be an executive at Activision and you could be against microtransactions just as your own philosophical belief. But when you come out of that boardroom and you come out of that shareholder meeting and they're all demanding microtransactions, or your head's going to be on a stake. Look, their jobs are on the line here.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice. Everything is going towards a subscription.
These subscription services are going to be everywhere. I mean, there's between Dollar Shave Club and there's a bunch of grocery food services where they deliver food to your door every week. I mean the Netflix, obvious. I mean, look at Netflix's stock in like 2009 and then carry that for another like 8 years. I mean, everybody else is looking at that and they're going, well, I guess this is what we need to do. Because like Phil said, the shareholders demand it, because in the corporate world, the value of a company is largely based on making predictions and then meeting or exceeding those predictions. And predictions are so much easier to make when you have this giant book of clients that are already subscribed and have agreed to keep subscribing for a while. It's very easy to look at your books and go, okay, next quarter, next fiscal year, this is what we expect because we have all of these subscribers right now. It's so easy to do, as opposed to, oh, we have to ramp up hardware production in China, ship out a bunch of units, and hope they sell. The predictability, shareholders love that.
Look, you're right. It's about shareholders. That's what this is all about. You have to please your shareholders. I don't care if you're against it personally and you're an executive. I mean, it can go no other way. Picture a roundtable meeting at a company like EA or Microsoft or any giant media company. You know, when they're going over numbers and they're going, gosh, you know, we'd really like to reel this back and let's make a game without microtransactions and we really want to win the hearts of the consumers back. Somebody gets up to that whiteboard and they start drawing some numbers and they're like, look, if we have microtransactions, we make another $800 million. It can go no other way.
It's a no-brainer.
They're going to walk out of that meeting and they're going to go, okay, I guess we're having microtransactions. I don't know how we started talking about microtransactions from a subscription service, but I don't know.
Just kind of explaining where the market is going, where this industry is headed, and why we're not getting the N64 Classic. It's not going to happen, folks. It's just not. N64 games are probably going to end up on the Switch. And even then, I don't know how many of them are going to end up on the Switch. I mean, we've talked about this before. You've got licensing issues with Rare, who made, I mean, Banjo-Kazooie 1, Banjo-Kazooie 2,
GoldenEye Perfect
GoldenEye
Dark,
Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day,
Jet Force Gemini, Diddy Kong Racing. I don't think it's happening. Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about Sega. They just released an actually good mini console, the new Genesis, which At Games had handled previously for a long time and really botched it. The Sega Genesis Mini is great, and we're going to do a review on it in our next video. But what's kind of puzzling to me is, you know, over the years we've had a lot of Genesis collections games.
the compilation discs.
They're everywhere, and they're on every system.
Yeah.
My question is, where is 32X? Where's Sega CD? Where's the Saturn? Where's the Dreamcast? Right? There's a lot of games that are stuck on those systems. A lot of people will say that the Sega CD was a great console for RPGs. Working Designs had some very memorable RPGs between Vi and Lunar. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people really love on those consoles.
The Sega CD was a bigger hit in Japan, and so they cranked out a lot of RPGs. To our delight, I guess, if you're a Sega CD fan, they localize a lot of those RPGs. And you're right, they're kind of stuck on the Sega CD, and it's hard to emulate, and there's never been any compilation discs.
I would love to see a Sega CD classic or a Saturn classic machine of some kind. But
here's what they're going to do. It's going to be an add-on to the Genesis Mini. You know they've thought about it.
But, I mean...
Clunk.
I'm kind of wondering if those ROMs are either lost or broken or what the story is, because why is it that we've had so many Genesis compilations over the years and we've never had a single Saturn compilation ever?
I don't know.
Or Dreamcast. I mean, there's so many examples, but I don't know, where are these games? Where are they?
I mean, Saturn and Sega CD, this was the mid-90s. I gotta believe a lot of those ROMs were stored on a hard drive somewhere. And this would have been mid-90s conventional magnetic hard drive.
Bunch of floppy disks and stuff.
Dude, those hard drives do not hold up. I don't know how many of you remember the 90s, but virtually every hard drive you ever had back then eventually just crashed. It literally just... That spinning magnetic discs going around at, 7,200 RPM, those things just did not last at all. And I kind of wonder if Sega had a storage center somewhere with a bunch of ROMs and a bunch of hard drives, and they just all went kaput. I don't know. And maybe Genesis stuff was stored on, solid state media somewhere, and that's why that's still around.
Maybe it's easier to dump those ROMs on old Genesis carts as opposed to CD stuff. I don't know. Anyone else out there having any answers?
We're just theorizing.
Where are these games?
Yeah.
I would love to see a classic Saturn console. I've never played a single Saturn game in my life. I have no idea what is on that machine.
I never had a Saturn, and none of my friends had a Saturn either. I feel like Sega could really be sitting on a cash cow with a Sega CD and a Sega Saturn Mini. Because like Phil said, we've never had these compilation discs over the years like we have Genesis. That's one. I mean, we'll talk about this in our other video. The Saturn and the Sega CD have never had that.
I know. If they release a Saturn Classic, I mean, people like me are going to go to the store and we're going to see that and we're going to go, I've never seen this before. This isn't that At Games Genesis I bought 8 years ago. This is something entirely new. I've never played these games. I'm going to look at the back of the box and I'm going to be like, wow, look what I've missed out on.
I know. I mean, I've never played Panzer Dragoon Saga. And I won't because it's $600.
But to my point about those ROMs maybe just being lost or broken, look at the Wii Virtual Console, which had TurboGrafx, Neo Geo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis.
True.
No Sega CD, no Saturn.
It's true.
So I don't know. I'm kind of thinking we might just never see those games again. So another question we have is, do we rely on price charting when we sell stuff on eBay? I don't know. What are your thoughts on price charting? The website, pricecharting.com is what we're talking about.
I consult price charting for sure. Kind of GameCube, PS2, Xbox original generation, and then going forward. Anything prior to that, I consult price charting, but you have to be really careful because it has some issues. Price charting gives you a few different values. You've got the loose price, the complete in-box price, a brand new price, and then there's a graded price, and then box only and manual only. For the most part, we're just dealing with loose versus complete in-box because the vast majority of games that we find at garage sales, they're either loose or in the box. Problem with these values on price charting is that they are taken from eBay completed listings, and eBay has 5 different categories of condition. So when you go to sell an item on eBay, you're supposed to pick the condition. You've got the lowest one, acceptable, good, very good, like new, and then brand new. If you read the description of each of those conditions from eBay, this is eBay's own rules. If you have a loose cart with no box, you have to pick acceptable, because any of those other conditions, even the good one, it must be complete with box and manual and all paperwork and everything that it had with it. I'm just going to grab this. If someone is looking to sell Mario RPG and they're looking at it and the label is perfect, the cart is perfect, there's not a scratch on this thing, they're not going to select the lowest condition possible when they put this on eBay. Because they can't.
But by eBay's own rules, they should.
They should.
Yeah.
And I believe price charting gets its loose prices from acceptable listings and not good or very good. So you got to do some research, especially on some older games, because if you have a card only and you look it up on eBay or you look it up on price charting, you're not going to get an accurate value of your game. And there are a few systems that really stand out. Game Boy Advance is probably the one to really be careful of. I was just looking at some Game Boy Advance games, the Castlevanias on Game Boy Advance, and price charting has the Castlevania double pack on Game Boy Advance for like $59 each, but when you go on eBay, you will see many authentic examples selling upwards of $70 or even $80. And I think the reason for that is because there are so many of those cheap Chinese knockoff carts floating around out there. And eBay doesn't seem to mind when people sell this stuff. And people sell those for like $10 all day long. Well, price charting, they're just pulling those values over. And they see these listings end at $10 all day long for Castlevania double pack. And it brings down the overall value. Game Boy Advance, I swear, it's just the worst. There are zillions of fake bootleg Game Boy Advance games out there. Pokemon in particular. There are zillions of them out there. And they continue to this day. And eBay just doesn't seem to care.
So don't leave money on the table. Look at eBay, completed listings. Go to eBay and look at those prices if you're selling something that's worth some good money.
Yeah, especially Game Boy Advance.
Someone says, what are your favorite video games of all time? I don't know. I think we should do a separate video on that.
We probably should.
Does anyone want to see that? Like, I don't know, top 10, top 20 video games, our favorites? I don't know.
Most overrated? What's the most overrated game of all time? And then what's the most overrated console of all time? Not worst. All right. That's a different category.
Most overrated console of all time is the Dreamcast.
By a light year.
Yeah.
All these Dreamcast lovers out there.
I don't get it.
Dude. How much do you love Shenmue and Seaman in order to keep...
Seriously. Like,
I don't get it either.
It was such a sports game heavy console.
Yeah.
Sports games have aged like garbage. So even if you're still into sports games, you're not playing those.
You're not playing
obviously.
World Series Baseball 2001.
No chance are you playing those games. You're playing the new ones. Are there a bunch of well-loved RPGs that are stuck on that system? No. Action adventure? I don't think so. Were there a bunch of shooters? Were there a bunch of Castlevania games? Were there a bunch? What is on that system that people are so in love with? I
can't figure it out. The
I have
first
no
party
idea.
stuff was average. The Sonic Adventure games were below average. I hate them. And I think the old Sonic games are much better. And I'm not a big Sonic fan. I mean, we already kind of talked about this, how we hate Sonic. But the 2D Sonics are miles ahead of Sonic Adventure in terms of just playability. Just pick up and play. Sonic Adventure, dude, we put that game in last year. You start out fighting a mini boss, which is a really weird way to start a game. And it's so unintuitive, and you have no idea how you're even supposed to beat this thing. The controls are terrible. It's a terrible game.
It's not fun.
Yeah, Dreamcast is the most overrated system of all time.
Yeah.
And it's not the worst system of all time. I don't hate it. I actually owned one back in the day. I really did. I bought it at Toys R Us. It was cheap. I think it was like $29.99 when I got it, because they were blowing them out. There are so many people, I hear this all the time, it's my favorite system of all time.
I just feel sorry for you.
Yeah,
if that's your favorite system of all time.
I know.
You missed out on seriously, systems that are better than the Dreamcast.
PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, NES, Super NES, N64, GameCube. I mean,
just everything.
The N64 is better, and I am not a big fan of the N64. I've been very critical of that. It doesn't age very well. There's a handful of great games, and the rest of them
Small library.
Yeah. Most overrated game of all time. Or franchise. We could kind of lump that together. Besides Sonic.
This is kind of a new game, but Spider-Man on the PS4 came out, I don't know, last Christmas or so.
Yeah.
And the reviews were really good. I eventually bought it when it came down to $20, and I could not get into that game. To me, it reminded me too much of the Batman Arkham series, the way that the combat works, where it's like, okay, here's a new room full of bad guys, and it turns into a brawler. Just you punch and kick, and you punch and kick, and you rinse and repeat. And look, I loved Batman Arkham Asylum. I played all the way through that game and loved it. And then I put in I think Arkham City, and it was like, oh, it's the same thing. And I think if those games never existed, I would have enjoyed Spider-Man a lot more. And I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. I didn't put a ton of hours into it, but it never grabbed me at all.
I might go with the Crash series. And
choice.
Again, not worst game of all time. They're fine games. They're okay. They're playable, but overrated.
Way overrated.
Way overrated. I remember when that remake, or not remake, it was just a compilation, and they might have
Crash
redone
Insane Trilogy or something.
Yeah, it came out a year or so ago for the Switch, and I think every system.
I think everything, yeah.
And everybody was so excited about it. I kept seeing all these posts on Instagram about people buying this game day one, and I was just kind of scratching my head. I was like, do you not remember playing these games? They're so vanilla. They're so... I mean, they're 3D, but they're linear. You can only go in one direction. Every level was just the awkward camera, like behind the head kind of angle.
The camera angles in Crash.
They're terrible. There's no exploration. You're just kind of running and jumping over little rivers and stuff. And I don't know. I never understood the Crash games. They're not fun. They're just okay. They're very average. They're not terrible.
And I've never been grabbed by the Rayman series. I think we had the first one on the PS1.
Yeah.
And I've tried subsequent Rayman games. They've been making them forever now.
Yeah.
Look, it's a pretty game. It's fine. It's a side-scrolling left to right game as far as I know. That's all it is. I've never been grabbed by one where I've played it more than, say, 3 levels. I just get bored. I don't know.
Yeah. They're just okay. They're kind of average platformer.
There's nothing wrong with them. But
yeah.
just not for me.
Yeah.
Most underrated franchise.
Ooh.
You know, I'm inclined to say Metroid. And I know there's a lot of people that love Metroid, but the reason we've had so few Metroid games over the years is because they do not sell well. Metroid Prime is a wonderful game. It is an incredible experience. You have to play it on the Wii. You can't. The controls, it's unplayable on the GameCube. And maybe that's why it's not worth much.
Yeah, so when Metroid Prime first came out, I got it right away. And this was, I don't know, 2002, 2003, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And this was at a time in my life, I'm not super proud of this, but I was playing Halo at that time so much. I mean, more than I could even express in words. The place that I lived, the people that I lived with also had Halo and Xbox, and we had them hooked up. We had multiple TVs. We would constantly have a bunch of people over. I was playing Halo. I don't know.
You had people over who worked at Microsoft who worked on that game.
That's true, yeah. And I would beat them.
Yeah.
And then I got Metroid Prime. And my brain had been already reprogrammed to control a 3D first-person game like Halo, with the 2 sticks, you know, one to move and one to look around. Metroid Prime did not control like that, and I could not get used to it because I was playing so much Halo. If I hadn't been playing Halo that much, I probably would have just stuck it out, and I probably would have gotten used to it. And I'm sure it's a fine game underneath that. I just couldn't do it. Every time I would pick it up, I had just come off a 5.5 hour Halo session, and then I would pick up Metroid Prime, and I would try to control it, and it was just, forget about it. I couldn't do it.
But yeah, I mean, I say the Metroid series just because, like I said, the games don't sell well. We had that Metroid 2 remake that came out maybe a year ago. It did not sell well at all. It's now in clearance bins, I've noticed. If they had sold really well, we would be seeing just as many Metroids as we do Zeldas. I mean, the N64 had 0 Metroid games. None.
And the prior systems only had one apiece. NES, Game Boy, Super NES, one Metroid apiece, and then they didn't even make one for a long time. So yeah, they've never been great sellers.
I mean, yeah, I say underrated. The people who are playing these Metroid games like me, we really do love these games. The Metroid Prime games are wonderful. Super Metroid, the Game Boy Advance Metroid games are amazing, but look, most people just don't experience these games, and I don't know why. I mean, to me, it seems like something that would draw you in. It's sci-fi. It's almost like you're playing in an alien movie. It's a lot like that, in fact. I hope the next Metroid game sells really well, and they just keep making them forever. I would love that, but I don't know. Favorite guilty pleasure game?
Okay, so what is a guilty pleasure game, real quick? You know it's not that good, but you like it a lot. For whatever reason, it just connects with you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sure. I don't know. My mind drifts to things like the Rock Band series or Call of Duty because I put so many hours into those. But objectively, those are really good. They might be overdone, but I don't think I would say that's a guilty pleasure.
That's true. You can't say Modern Warfare 2 is not a good game.
Yeah.
People give the original Halo a lot of crap, and I just got done talking about how much I used to play that. I still really like the original Halo.
Yeah.
I really do. I have the remastered edition for the Master Chief edition or whatever that's called for the Xbox One. Man, I can still put that in and just have a blast. I played that so much. I have every level just memorized. I have every part of every level is just etched into my brain of the original Halo. I know where everything is. If I play multiplayer, I know where all the health packs are. I know where all the ammo is. I know where all the sniper rifles are and the rocket launcher. I know every part of that game is just forever burned into my brain. And I still really enjoy it. I really do. I know it's overdone. I know they've made a billion sequels. And I haven't played any of the newer ones. I mean, the last Halo game I played was 3, I think. Pilot Wings on Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo Pilot Wings, I can still play today. I love it. I was just playing it on Switch, and with the rewind feature, you can get all the bonus games really easily. Because if you miss that little moving landing pad, you just rewind a few seconds and try it again.
It's still really hard, though, even with that.
That's true, but it's really fun. I love Pilot
Except for the hang glider. I could never do the hang glider.
It's kind of weird.
I don't even know how to do it.
It's a learning curve there. It's hard to get used to.
I could never figure that out. Anyway, so those are some questions that we had from viewers over the last few months. If you have any questions, shoot us a note on our Instagram account. It's probably the best way to reach us. And I'll put the Instagram username right here, right now.
Here.
If I can figure that out.
Okay.
We'll see if I can. If not, the end of the video has a little thing with our Instagram account name on it. And the end of the video is going to come right now.